So that was weird, but not unexpected. Facebook is having all kinds of Facebook Live glitches. They are just like freezing up lives, not letting people join. The joy of technology, but that's okay. I am back. I deleted that video and I'm just starting all over again. So hi everyone, it is Wednesday and that means it is my Facebook Live day, my weekly Facebook Live on Wednesday. How are you? When you're here, say hello. Let me know that you're here. I am so excited about this topic. I think it's really important for everyone. But I can't wait. But first I want to ask, what are we celebrating this week? What are we celebrating? And it doesn't have to be a big goal. It can be a step, a new thought, progress, something that happened. I just want to know. It's a Wednesday. On our weekly Wednesday lives, I want to start incorporating a little bit of celebration. So tell me what we're celebrating. But this topic is huge. I also want to know whether you're watching live or if you're watching on replay. I want to know how many of you consider yourself to be a perfectionist, because I used to. I used to consider myself a perfectionist, and I wore it like a badge of honor. I was like, okay, like I'm a perfectionist and I think this is a really good thing. But it was really because I had the wrong definition. I had the wrong definition of perfectionist, right? Like right now I'm having tech issues, right? The old me would have freaked out about this and would have said, oh, okay, like I am a perfectionist and this is freaking me out that I'm having tech issues. But I had the wrong definition of perfectionism. And I think that that's what I see with so many people, right? And I'm pulling this up on my phone because I can see if it froze that way or not. Facebook is just being so weird, you guys. Facebook is being so weird. Okay, anyway, when you're here, please say hi. I have no idea who's here, who's not. I pulled it up on my phone. I should know. Hi, Jennifer. I see that Jennifer joined. Hi. So I used to be a perfectionist. I am happy to say now I am no longer a perfectionist, but I am very curious, right? This is going to be very important. How many of you out there feel like you are also a perfectionist? And what does perfectionism mean to you? That's what I'm curious about. What does perfectionism mean to you? So I actually thought that being a perfectionist was kind of cool. Like I didn't know that that's what I thought was cool, but it was kind of like, all right, like I like to dot the I's and I like to cross the T's and I like to double, triple check and I like to make sure that everyth's okay. And that's what perfectionism is, right? Perfectionism is wanting everything to look good. Perfectionism is wanting everything to get out in a certain way with a certain standard. And that is not perfectionism at all. It's not perfectionism at all, not even a little bit, right? So that's what I mean by a lot of people confuse excellence, right? There's no spoiler alert because of the title of the live. A lot of people confuse excellence with perfectionism. Excellence is wanting to put out an excellent work product. Excellence is wanting to make sure like the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. Excellence is like looking at the quality of something and putting it out there, right? Excellence is not perfectionism, but so many people refer to perfectionism as if it's excellence. Does that make sense? How many of you kind of have that definition of perfectionism? That it's dotting I's, crossing T's, making sure that you're putting out a good work product. Like, who has that definition? Anybody? I'm going to tell you what perfectionism is, and it always makes people mad. It always makes people mad when I tell them what perfectionism really is, right? And this is why perfectionism is related to procrastination. In fact, perfectionism and procrastination, like they go hand in hand, okay? So that's important to know, and you're going to understand why when we dig into it. But I wore it like a badge of honor. I was like, I'm a perfectionist, but I just didn't know, right, what perfectionism really was. And I was using the word perfection to mean excellence, when excellence and perfection is like a really different thing. And perfectionism isn't just putting out an excellent work product. It's kind of chasing a standard that actually can't, it's a standard that can't be reached, right? It doesn't exist. There is no such thing as perfect, right? There's never going to be like the perfect environment, the perfect whatever, the perfect any of that. So I would like, I'm trying to figure out the best way to say this, right? I would try to prevent mistakes at all costs, right? Which is not bad. It's not bad to prevent mistakes at all costs. But at a certain point, right, at a certain point, I have to stop. I can only do a certain amount of things to guarantee that my work will be done well, right? So at a certain point, I have to like release things into the wild. But when you cross that line, of a certain point, and you're so afraid of mistakes that you never start, or you start and you take the first steps but you don't finish, or, well, that's it, you either don't start or you don't finish, right? Or, and we'll get to it, right, you do something else called dramatic procrastination. That's my favorite thing ever. It's my favorite thing to talk about. But that's kind of it, right? Like, so what happens is perfectionists are not concerned with excellence. Like, I can't state this enough. Perfectionists are not concerned with, maybe this is not a good conversation because people are hopping in and they're hopping out. Maybe I'm calling out people on being a perfectionist, but perfectionism is not excellence. So excellence is doing a good enough work product, wanting it to be excellent, wanting to make sure, right? But within a reasonable time frame, you start, you finish, you have quality control, you get it done, you get it out there, right? That's excellence. Perfectionism is, I am so scared to make a mistake that I won't take things on unless I'm 100% certain that they will work and they will work perfectly and I'm guaranteed results, right? I will not start unless I am absolutely 100% like guaranteed of the results that I am supposed to achieve, right? Perfectionism is also, I have to make sure that I'm really good at what I do. Okay, so the best way, perfectionists like to be the best at what they do. So I'm not sure how many of you identify like that or identify as a perfectionist in that way, but perfectionists, true perfectionists, they want to be the best, right? They want to be the best attorney. They want to be the best coach. They want to be the best at what they do. They have this like craving and this need and this desire to chase the best, to be the best, to be the top. The problem with that, right, is that when they reach that level, a true perfectionist, right, kind of follows the path of what they're good at because they're always at the top. But eventually they reach like the top of the box. So pretend like you're in a box, okay? So this box of the Facebook Live is my Rita box, right? And I start like way down here. I'm born and I grow and I whatever, but I'm like good at speaking and I'm good at this. So I kind of follow this path and I become a lawyer, and then I'm really good at being a lawyer. And now I'm at the very, let's say I become the best lawyer. I'm the best trial attorney that there is. I'm excellent at it, right? What happens is I'm way up here. I'm at the top of my box, but I don't want to go into the next box because if I go into the next box, then I'm going to be at the bottom of that box, right? And a perfectionist, that's like their worst nightmare because they don't want to be, right? They don't want to be at the bottom of the box. And so it's like, no, I'm not going to become a judge because I wouldn't be the best judge. I don't even know how to judge. I don't know how to do that. And I can't start it. And I can't start down that path as a perfectionist until I'm 100% certain that I'm going to know exactly what to do in all cases, in all situations, in all ways, and that I'm going to make the perfect decision, and I'm going to know the perfect ruling, and I'm going to know the perfect this and the perfect that. Does that make sense? I really have no idea how many people are here or not. I keep seeing people join, but like Facebook Live is not telling me. So if you're here, please say hi. But that's a perfectionist, right? A perfectionist as a kid, like whatever, you're not really a perfectionist. We're going to get to that. Like you're not born as a perfectionist. You're just not born. That's a learned trait, right? So what happens is around like college, when we start like trying to find our career, right? That's where we start doing the thing I'm talking about. You're like, I'm at the bottom of the lawyer box. I embark on my career, and then I start and I'm really, really good, and I work all the way up to the top of the lawyer box, and then I'm going to stop, right? It's like I can't go outside of the lawyer box because as a perfectionist, I can't go into the judge box. I can't go into the judge box because I'm not 100% sure that I'm going to know how to judge, or I need to, before I do it, I need to know that I'm going to know exactly how to judge in all situations, in all cases, and have the right ruling and be the perfect right judge. Otherwise, I won't even start down the path of being a judge. Does that resonate with anybody at all? Right? So what happens is when you're a perfectionist, right, you end up like taking on less things, right? You limit your life to living in your box, and you limit your life because you're paranoid, right? You're paranoid, and so you like do less and less. And like I said, that really happens not even at college. It's like when we come out of college, or even a little later, right? So we're given a roadmap all our life, right? Like we're given a roadmap. It's like you go to elementary school, and then you go to junior high, and then you go to high school, and even after high school, like you go to college, and after college, like you get your degree or you get your whatever, right? Like we're given a roadmap, right, in school. But like once we're out of college, for the most part, there isn't a roadmap other than like find a job and make money and feed yourself, right? Or even out of high school. Like nowadays, there's really not a roadmap for what you do after high school. There's so many different options, right? So what happens is we're just told what to do and given a roadmap up to a certain point. So we don't really realize this until that. But what happens, right, is like, so the best way to describe it is like from kindergarten to 12th, right? Kindergarten to 12th grade, you have no choice but to do the things and fail and make mistakes, right? You're told what you have to do. You have to go to school. You have to graduate. You have to go to high school. Yeah, I mean it's like legally mandated to like from kindergarten to, right? So you have no choice. So you're doing all this stuff and you're failing and but it's because you have no choice. But the minute you have a choice, the minute that you're out of high school, right? That's when, if you're a perfectionist or you have those tendencies, are going to kick in because your roadmap ends. And at that point, you don't know the steps. You don't know the order. You don't know the next sequence. You don't know the next thing, right? So you kind of fall into something, like maybe you go to college because that would be the next thing on the roadmap, right? Maybe after college, you get a job, right? But like when you get your job, you're like, okay, now I have to be the best at my job. This is like a perfectionist thinking, right? I gotta be the best at my job. And so like I said, just a few minutes ago, right, as a perfectionist, you will get to be the best at the thing that you do, but then you won't go into any new thing because you aren't guaranteed that you'll know exactly how to do it and that you'll do it well. Like you absolutely want to know. Before I do this, I want to know that I'm going to do it and I'm going to do it well, right? So hi, everybody. So I gave this example with me and the lawyer and the judge, but like it's the same thing with a lot of people and what they're doing with entrepreneurship, right? It's like, oh, well, I can't do a Facebook Live until I know everything about Facebook Live and I know how it works and I know that people are going to log on when I go live and I know that like all of this is going to happen, right? I need to know that I know my script and that I'm going to look good and there aren't going to be technical difficulties and that people are going to enjoy the topic and that people are going to log on and people are going to say hi and people are going to, right? Like that's what a perfectionist thinks. I can't do that until I'm guaranteed an outcome. I can't do that until I know exactly how to do every little thing and I know everything that will result from doing it. That's perfectionism. That's not excellence, right? So that's the point that I want you to see. Perfectionists won't start things, or if they start planning things, they won't finish it. So maybe I'll decide that I'm going to do a Facebook Live, right? But then it'll be like, I'll map out my content. I'll map out what I talk about. I'll map out, but I won't actually schedule it. Or I won't actually go live, or if nobody logs on in the first 5 minutes of my Facebook Live, I'm going to close it out and like shut it down and delete it, right? Like that's what a perfectionist does. A perfectionist never starts, or a perfectionist won't finish, right? Because they're so paranoid about not being the best at it, not having everything 100% correct, not knowing that it's all going to work out, not knowing the results, not knowing whatever. So they don't do it or they don't ever bring it to fruition. So they don't start it or they don't finish it, right? That's not excellence. Excellence, you start it, you finish it, right? And there's a period between of quality control. Are you guys seeing the difference? Like, yes, no, are you guys still here? Like, hello? I'm like, Bueller, Bueller, right? Like if I was worried about nobody logging on, if I was a perfectionist, I would just shut this down and pretend like I never came on Facebook Live today, right? This is probably the weirdest Facebook Live I've had in a while, and that's why I think Facebook might be having glitches, I hope, because no one has said hi except Jennifer, and like no one has talked to me, right? But a perfectionist would just shut this down. Also, I don't have a lot of notes for this one, right? This was kind of a very last minute topic that I came up with. A perfectionist would have never gone live like this. So I really want you guys to see the difference between perfectionism and excellence. Perfectionism is not dotting I's and crossing T's, right? It's not. It's a fear that is cloaked in procrastination. That's the best quote I've ever heard about perfectionism, right? It is a fear cloaked in procrastination, because perfectionism and procrastination go hand in hand. Because if you're not guaranteed results, if you're not sure that you're going to be the best at it before you even start it, if you aren't 100% sure you're going to know all the answers and all the right things to say and all the right things to do and that all the right results are going to happen, you procrastinate on it. You don't start, right? That's why perfectionism, hi Shay, hi. That's why perfectionism and procrastination go hand in hand, right? But perfectionism is not excellence. People who don't suffer from perfectionism but turn out excellent work product start it and finish it, and there's a quality control period, but they release it. And they release it because they're okay if it's not 100% perfect, because nothing ever is 100% perfect. They're okay with whatever results from it, right? So that's it. You guys, are you guys getting the difference between a perfectionist and procrastination? And obviously the reason that this is important is what I said, right? A perfectionist will limit their life. They keep limiting their life until they're living within this little box, because they're terrified of doing anything outside of that box, because they might not look good, right? They might not know the answers. They might fall down. They might make a mistake. Oh, is it glitchy on my end? Is it glitchy on my end, Shay? Or is it glitchy on your end? I'm looking at it on my phone and it looks okay. So if anybody else is watching, is it glitchy? If you could let me know, is it glitchy for everybody? Or is it just glitchy for Shay? Because that might be why nobody's interacting, if it's glitchy for everybody. So I would love to know. Because I would hate to record this whole thing to find out it was glitchy. So if you guys could at least message and say, you're coming across loud and clear, you're coming across smooth, tech looks okay. Not on yours. Okay, good. That's all I needed to know. All right. Okay. So perfectionists limit their life because they're paranoid, because they're scared of not knowing the answers. So how many of you identify as a true perfectionist, right? And how many of you are hiding your perfectionism by calling it excellence, or treating perfectionism as like it's excellence, right? Which is what I used to do. So I wore that perfectionist badge, pretending that perfectionism meant excellence, and that I wanted to dot I's, cross T's, and have everything look good. But that wasn't the truth. Right? The truth, right? The truth is, I just was terrified of not knowing, right? I was terrified of, so eventually what happens to most perfectionists, they become exhausted. They become exhausted by like all of these limits that they place on themselves. Oh, Rashida says no glitches. Okay, cool. Recovering perfectionist. That's me too, right? I swear, somebody needs to start a Facebook group. If it's not already started, called the Recovering Perfectionist, because there's a huge community of recovering perfectionists, right? So what happens, right? It's like a circle. So if I'm a perfectionist, right, and I get really good at one thing, or really good in the areas in one way, I won't ever go into the other boxes in my life. So then I'll procrastinate, right? And then I'll just procrastinate more and more, and I get more upset and frustrated because I'm not really living the life I want to live, which makes me actually procrastinate more in career and in business and in marriage and relationships and like all this stuff, right? And then I become exhausted, right? Perfectionists become exhausted at how they've limited their life because they're not happy, right? They're not feeling joy. They're not feeling whatever. And they're not stretching themselves, right? So then they get tired, right? Everything disappoints them. Everything is negative. Nothing is working out. Like, not just that, but every other person disappoints them, right? Every other person disappoints a perfectionist because you have the same like incorrect standard that you're applying for yourself. You're applying that standard on everybody else. So like nobody seems to be able to live up to your expectations. Why aren't people, how many, like, I was like that, guys. I was like that in college, right? Like I had perfectionist standards for myself, which weren't healthy because perfectionism isn't healthy, right? And so I had these standards, right? Like I had to know all the right answers and do all the right things and not make a mistake and be everything to everyone and know how to do it all and do it all well and blah, blah, blah. And I would judge other people, or I would have like judgment of people who I felt weren't stepping up to that level, right? So that's something else about a perfectionist, right? Like they're exhausted, they're worn down, they're unhappy, they aren't stretching themselves, they aren't reaching their potential, they're tired all the time, everything and everyone disappoints them, they're not doing anything, right? Because they're living in their box and not getting outside of their box, not growing, right? So did that happen to you, Jennifer? I'm curious. That happened to me as a perfectionist, right? Like I did that. I became really, really good at one thing. And then I was terrified to go do the next thing because I wouldn't know how to do the next thing. And I could look silly. I could look whatever. And so I didn't do it. And as I realized I was starting to limit my life, right? That's when I got tired and exhausted and disappointed. But then I had this snapping point of wanting to change it. And that's what 35 Dates in 35 Days did, right? It helped me change it. So you guys are all quiet. I'm hoping that this is resonating with you and showing you the difference, right, between excellence and perfectionism and what perfectionism really is and how perfectionism really shows up in your life, right? The top producers, guys, like the top people in the business world, the top people that you're, like the top people, the leader, like they're happy. They're not disappointed and angry. They're not judging other people. They're not competitive, right? Like they are collaborative and they are happy and they're growing and they're failing and they're trying new things and they're getting messy and they're, right? Like that's because they've let go of perfectionism or they're not a perfectionist, right? They've dropped the need to always look good, to have the right answers, to know how to do everything. They've embraced the fact that you don't know until you do. Like you don't come out of the womb knowing how to walk, right? Like you don't come out of the womb going, great, I can walk and I'm never going to fall down, right? Like, no, you don't. Like you don't. Now I'm picturing me coming out of the womb. It's absolutely terrible, right? But like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't. You fall, you make mistakes, you're not going to get it right. You have to practice, right? So Becca says, I just tell myself I don't know what I don't know and try to dive in, right? That's different, right? A perfectionist won't allow themselves to do that. They won't actually dive in, or they'll dive in, but not to anything that people can see. And then they'll stop, right, at a certain point. So the people who are the top producers, who love what they do, right? Every single one of them, they're not a perfectionist. You could interview them all. They're not a perfectionist, right? And here, let me say real quickly, because somebody messaged and asked, here's how perfectionism and procrastination tie hand in hand. Somebody messaged and said they don't understand that. So I'm going to clarify that before I move on to, so what do you do about it? Right now we know the difference. What do you do about it if you're like, I want to try all these things, but I am terrified, right? So, okay. The way that perfectionism and procrastination tie hand in hand is kind of like what I was talking about. When you are at the top of your box and you're trying to go into the next box, right? You're trying to do the next thing or something you've never done before and you're a perfectionist. You won't. You'll push it off. You'll procrastinate, right? Because you want to know before you ever start, you need to know that the finish is going to be good. You need to know it's going to work. You need to be guaranteed results. You need to be guaranteed you're going to know what to do and you're not going to make a mistake and you're going to look good and it's all going to work, right? And that you're going to get all the results you want. So you'll procrastinate. But here's what happens. For some things, especially in a company or whatever, you can't procrastinate forever, right? There are certain things. So what happens for a lot of perfectionists, they turn to what's called dramatic procrastination. And I don't know how many of you can relate to this, but this was me in law school, okay? This is me in law school. So I would push off writing my paper, right? My big whatever, or college. I said law school, college. I would push off writing my big, huge paper because I wanted to make sure it was going to be a perfect paper, right? So I would push it off forever and ever. And then I pulled an all-nighter. How many of you did all-nighters in college ever? I once wrote, I kid you not, I wrote like a 25, I think it was 25, I still have it somewhere, a 25-page paper on the Weimar Republic in 24 hours, and I hadn't read the book, right? So starting that morning, I woke up and I started skimming the book, and I skimmed chapters just enough to piece together a paper. And it was the final paper, right? So it was like a 25-page paper, and I was like copying it, and I was sitting there, and I had 24 straight hours, right? And I remember running to we had to go turn them in. I went to GW, right? So I had to run from like my dorm, like a couple of blocks through the city to get to the building where we had to turn in the papers in the like little box slots, right? The mailroom. And I'm feeling very alone. Have any of you ever pulled all nighters? So like in school, so like I ran and I turned the paper in, and I got the paper back, okay? And the paper, when I got it back, was like a C+. Do you know what I said after I got the C+ paper? Remember, I'm a perfectionist at this stage in my life. In college, I'm a perfectionist. Perfectionist Rita was terrified of starting the paper because I was really good in school and I was not good in that class. I was really good in school and I had skipped that class a couple of times because I wasn't doing well. I wasn't comprehending it right. So when it came time to write the one paper, that was our whole grade. This freaking paper was our whole grade. And like, can you tell it's bringing up memories, right? So this whole paper was my grade. And I pushed off because I was a perfectionist, and that's what we do. We push things off and procrastinate until I couldn't procrastinate anymore because I won't let myself fail college. So I pieced together in 24 hours, a big, huge 25-page paper, ran it down to the professor, put it in the mailbox, and then got the C+, right? And here's what happened. So Jennifer said we procrastinate and tell ourselves we work better under pressure to justify our actions of procrastinating. Sometimes, yeah, sometimes. Here's really what's happening though with a true perfectionist. I get the C+ paper back and I'm like, wow, oh my gosh, that's great. And people are like, that's great, that's a C+. Oh, but I only had 24 hours to write this paper. If I had like the full quarter to write this paper, the full 4 months, I would have gotten an A, but I only had 24 hours to write this paper, right? So that's why I got a C+. Right? So suddenly I'm justifying my C+ because I'm saying I was a victim of time, that I only had 24 hours. And because I only had 24 hours, that's why I got the C+. Do you guys see the fallacy in that logic, right? I created the entire situation that only gave me 24 hours to be able to work on that paper. But here's why perfectionists do that without realizing they're doing that. What's going on in the back of our brain or wherever our subconscious is, right? What's going on there is, and without us knowing it, is, well, if I don't give myself the full time to do it and I don't get a great grade, then it's not really my fault that I didn't get a great grade, because a perfectionist can never fail. We can't not be good at what we do. We can't look bad. We can't get a C+. A perfectionist, a real perfectionist, wants an A, right? Well, what we'll do is then when we're scared to start as a perfectionist, when it's something outside of our comfort zone, so we're procrastinating, we will procrastinate to the point of dramatic procrastination so that we have something to blame if we don't get the A, right? Because what if I had taken the whole quarter, the full time or whatever I had to write that paper, and I had all the time in my schedule and I had it all carved out and I did all the things and I turned it in and I still got a C+. I wouldn't have anybody else to blame, right? I wouldn't have any other situation to blame. There would be no circumstance to blame, to sound like I'm a victim of something. It would have been nothing but my own fault. And I don't want to see that, right? As a perfectionist, I don't want to see that. And so I'm going to create a situation where it feels like I'm a victim. I'm a victim of time, or I'm a victim of whatever. So I only had this long to do it. And that's why it was just like, whatever. Instead of saying, no, I created the entire situation that caused that to happen. Does that make sense? So that's what dramatic procrastination is. And dramatic procrastination is heavily tied to perfectionists. Are we good? Does that make sense? I just want to make sure people get that, right? So now we've differentiated excellence from perfectionism. We've also identified how perfectionism shows up, right, in people's lives in a real way, so you can really identify it. What does it really look like? And then what can it cost, right, in terms of that dramatic procrastination, and why? Why are we doing it, right? It's like, oh, we're creating pretend situations so we don't blame ourselves if things don't go right, if things don't go great. So when really we created that situation, right? So guys, I want you to see that, right? So how do you stop it, right? But here's the thing that I've been talking about this weekend. How many of you saw my post today? If you're watching on replay, if you're watching live, tell me. Did you? Like, I want to know. I want to know. Did you see my post today, Wednesday? Yes or no? My post from today. And I'll tell you why I ask, because this is the #1 thing, right? So entrepreneurs are so worried to do all this stuff because of how they'll look. I can't get on Facebook Live because I'm not going to look good on video. I can't do this thing because of how I sound. I can't put out that offer. I don't have a really good sales page, and I don't know how to make a nice website. I can't publish my website because I don't have great photos. I can't go networking because I don't have a business card, and I don't have a business card because I don't have a logo, and so I can't even start that, right? Again, perfectionists are worried, right? Perfectionists are worried about, Becca, don't worry, I'm going to tell you in a minute. Perfectionists are worried about always having to have the right answers, knowing it's going to work, knowing they're not going to make a mistake, right? All of this stuff, right? So entrepreneurs who are perfectionists aren't doing anything. They're not putting up posts because they're scared that people won't like the post. They're not doing lives because they're scared they'll make a mistake, or they won't say the right thing, or they'll stumble, or people won't comment, right? What are you guys who identify as perfectionists, or who have, what are you procrastinating on? What are you pushing off? What are you not starting? What are you either not starting or you've started it, but you keep delaying it and you keep procrastinating? It could be sending out an email. It could be starting a newsletter. It could be applying to speak. It could be anything, right? It's probably everything, right? Here is the first way to start letting that go, right? And that was my post today. You are sabotaging your business when you don't start or you don't finish. But not just because you're not starting or you're not finishing. It's because your entire perspective on your business is skewed, right? And I'll tell you what I mean. Your entire perspective on your business is focused on you and how you'll look. You did not go into business to make yourself look good. You didn't go into business to make yourself look good. If you did, that's built on a foundation that will not sustain. If that's the foundation that your business is built on, how will this business make me look, over what kind of impact can I make in the lives of others, your business won't sustain. There's nothing that I can do to coach you and get you around that and help you have a sustainable business, right? There's nothing that I can do if that's true, right? Most of you, I'm assuming, all of you, how many of you, just type 1 in the comments if you started your business to make yourself look good, and type 2 in the comments if you started your business to impact other people and to help other people, right? I'm a 2, right? I'm a 2. I started my business to impact people, to help people. Yes, I started it also because I wanted certain things in my life, but it wasn't to make me look good, right? But when I'm not putting out valuable information, when I'm not putting out posts that if somebody comes across it, it could change their life. If I'm not hopping on a live, that if somebody saw it, it could change their life. If I'm not creating that workshop, if I'm not publishing that article, if I'm not writing the book, if I'm not doing whatever, right? If I'm not doing the thing that will provide the people I want to help with the opportunities, resource, materials, and information that they need to get helped, right? Of course my business is going to fail. I am prioritizing how I look, how I come across, over actually impacting people, right? Does that make sense? Like, does that make sense at all? That's what's happening. But perfectionists justify it by pretending it's about the other person. Well, I want to make sure that I look good so that they have a nice experience watching the video, or I want to make sure I know everything to say perfectly because, right, I want them to have this moment or this aha, or I need them to love the program and know that it's 100% everything when they go to, like, so we will use them as the excuse, but really that's not it, right? Do you guys see that? So you're focused on yourself and how you look. And you did not start your business to make yourself look good. You started your business to make yourself. So I use the example of a doctor. Let's say you're really sick and you're in the exam room and you're like, oh, I'm so sick. Don't you like my sick? That's how I go to the doctor. Oh, I'm so sick. Look at me sick, right? I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, and I'm crying and I'm sick and the doctor's outside. He's going to come in, but he looks and he's like, oh, I spilled something on my shirt. I can't go in there. If I go in there, she's going to think I'm not professional because I have a stain on my shirt. I can't do it. And the doctor turns around and leaves, right? That doctor prioritized how he looked over the impact he could make in my life by coming in and giving me a pill. Right now, for people just joining, hi Ingrid, that did not really happen, right? That is an example. But you see, that's what we're doing every day that we decide not to start and finish something that could put content and material and information and resources out to our audience. Our audience has a problem. Our audience has a challenge. Our audience has a struggle. Our audience has a pain point. Our audience is going through something and we have a solution, but we are saying that how we look and come across is more important than getting that solution to our audience. Right? And if that is the way that you are running your business, then that business will not sustain. Does that make sense? Right? Are you guys getting that? So like that's what a perfectionist is doing to sabotage their business. It's not excellence. Excellence, people who are excellent at something or want to be excellent at something who aren't perfectionists will always start and will always finish. And they have like a standard of quality control, and they're okay letting it go after they've run through that standard of quality control. A perfectionist is terrified of being wrong, not looking good, not doing it right, making a mistake, failing, hearing a no, being like rejected in other ways, like having something happen, right? So they won't start, or they'll start, but they'll procrastinate, so they never finish and put it out. Right? And in that situation, what they're doing is saying how I look is more important than the impact that I can make on other people. And so the first thing that you can do to step back into excellence and away from perfectionism is to put reminders and to put things to shift your perspective to other people. Are you guys getting that? Is this like, you guys are super quiet today? Super quiet. So if you're not going to, if you're like, oh, Facebook Live, Rita told me to do a Facebook Live and I don't want to do it because I look this way, or like, I want you to, that in that moment, you could look at your visual reminder and say, wait a minute, what is the impact of not doing this for my audience? What could happen if I did this? Like, what are the ripple effects, right? If I do the Facebook Live and somebody in my community sees it, they could have a problem and have it be solved, right? They could have a problem and they could have it be solved. And it would be wonderful, and I can make that impact. Oh my gosh, how can I not do this? That's my entire job, right? But here's what, so in my podcast, I don't know, how many of you are listening to my podcast? How many of you are listening to it? Because it's good, right? It comes out, it's good. It comes out it's good. It comes out every